So on to the pads, strings, and sort of solo section of this track. I think the secret, or one of the sort of hidden secrets for Detroit techno, I've always found, is to make this really ethereal, kind of silky kind of chords for Detroit stuff. You have to really do a mixture of two things. You have to mix up the root keys that you're playing along with the chords, and what I mean by that is basically augmenting the chords. Now, in my previous tutorial, I did a really in-depth sort of look at all the different chord structures and how to do augmented chords, diminished chords, sevenths, ninths, fifths. So I suggest that if you don't know much about the making chords and stuff like that in your music, you should go back to look at my last tutorial for Sonic Academy. For this one, I'll describe it as best I possibly can without going into too much scientific detail about it again. But essentially, augmented chords is when you take the root note out and split the chord up over maybe 1 or 2 octaves and change where the root note is, if that makes sense. Best way to do it is just to play it for you. So if I open up another MIDI channel here, for this track, I actually used Yuhei's Hive plugin, which is like a kind of less CPU intensive version of Diva. It's nowhere near as powerful, but it still sounds really, really great. It is a different animal, there's no doubt about it. It's not the same kind of plugin, but it's got some amazing capabilities. I mean, you really dive deep into some of the sounds, you can do some really lovely things with it. I've got some presets that I've made over the last while that I've had it. This one's called Carol Craig Pads, because it's really got that kind of ethereal, wishy-washy kind of sound that he used to use in his Detroit material. So if I just play some chords for you so that it gives you an example of the kind of stuff that I'm talking about. For example, a straight triad chord, we're in the root note of F for this track, so a straight triad would sound like this. Which is lovely in its own way, but for this kind of music, you want to kind of split the chord up a little bit and change root notes. So I'll give you another example. If I make the triad into like a seventh, it already has that kind of Detroit-esque kind of ethereal sort of quality to it. If I then change the root note from an F to a G, then you have this kind of slightly more mysterious chord that doesn't really know where its basis is, and that's where you can bring in a different root note. So for example, if I play this augmented chord and then change the root note with a lower key, you'll understand exactly what I'm talking about. So there you get an idea of exactly what I mean by changing the root note underneath while playing augmented chords. And I think those two things are kind of key to making really beautiful Detroit chord structures. For this track, I had a bit of a brainstorm. It was basically like a random live jam for like 20 minutes where I played loads of different chords. And then I found one that just kind of worked. And I don't even remember how many bars the pad structure was over. I'm not going to go back and look because I want this track to be kind of its own thing. So I'm just going to play some different, before I put anything in as a sequence, let me just play some chords based on the F root key first of all, and then I'll switch up through different chords as well. And this will give you an idea of the kind of Detroit chords that we're looking for. So just a little jam like that, using lots of different chords. But for this track, there was a very specific sequence which worked really well, and this is what I'm going to try and recreate now. So this is how it kind of sounds like. And those were the chords, but they weren't necessarily in that tempo or with those amount of bars, because as I said, it was a kind of random programming jam that I had. The chords are basically start off at F, then they go to G, then they go to C sharp, and then they go to D sharp. That's the 4 sort of root notes that we're using. But throughout the track, I might actually change some of the root notes to sort of mix it in a little bit. So let me put this chord sequence in, and I'll just randomise the amount of time or the amount of bars that we're using. It won't be exactly the same as the original because I want this track to kind of be its own thing. Definitely need the metronome for this one. So yeah, I don't know how many that is. A little dodgy note there. Let's have a look. If I just quantize this a little bit, it's 22 bars. But let's bring that down to 21 bars. So if I play this back with, say, one of the synth sounds, this will give us context in terms of the switching over in the cycles of the patterns. So let me see. Take this one out and then play the pads. Just do that again because the pads are a bit loud. Yeah, I'm really happy with that. It's really nice. I actually think it's longer than the original one for sure. I think that was maybe 15 or 16. But there's a couple of extra chords in here which work really nicely. Now let me play this back with everything, all the sounds, and bring the pads up a little bit. This will give us an even better impression of how the difference in all these tones switching around can really work when you change the chords like this. So I hope by doing this, you can see exactly the results you can get using a few different techniques and not very many plugins, to be honest. We're only using DX7 5 times and the Hive plugin so far. So 2 different plugins, but we've got this really warm, full, kind of magical, kind of flowing, organic sound. I'm using far too many flowery words today. I don't know what's going on. Anyway, so yeah, this is sounding really, really nice. Let me just check the EQ in here first. Got an OQ2 in there, and let's play the pads on their own a second. Yeah, that'll do. I'm not too bothered with that just now. All my pads are always yellow, so make sure these are yellow. And may as well create a bus for them now while we're here. Pads, yellow. Pads, okay. Now, on top of this, I'm going to copy this part. Because there's going to be a few little extra notes that I just want to randomize in there. And that might not be 21 long again. It might be a little bit different. But if I just play something a bit simpler back so we've got some context. Yeah, so if I play these 3 back together while these pads are playing, I'm going to try and put in a couple of extra notes on top. Okay, so I'm not gonna put extra notes in with this sound because I've got a solo that I want to put on top of this, which is using a different plugin again, and it's a much nicer sound for this kind of part. For this one, I just want to put in some missing notes. So I'm going to look at this while I'm recording so I can see where the notes are supposed to be. This is supposed to be like that. Okay, so let me just listen back to this again and try and find where the notes are. Yeah, so I'm just going to put in some subtle parts underneath this. So this part's actually 42 bars, which is actually double the length of the other one. And this one I'm probably not going to use that often. It's maybe going to be a filler piece, so I'll just rename this filler pad. as well name this as well. Pad. Okay, so we've got these two pads running now. Let's get the solo in on top of this. And you understand what I'm talking about. I'm going to mute this filler pad for the moment because, it's, as I said, it's not something that we're going to use all the time, and I'll just bring it down to a different row as well for a reason you'll see later. Okay, so let's create a new MIDI part. This time, we're going to use another Arturia V-Collection plugin. It's the CS80, also originally from Yamaha, one of the best synthesizers ever created. And I did create a patch called V-Desire. That kind of gives the hint, kind of gives it away what it sounds like. And it's a beautiful sound. And it really went well with this track. And again, I'm not going to copy the original parts over. I'm just going to create something that's kind of close to it, but maybe got its own life as well. So let's just listen to the sound first of all. A really beautiful sound, and in combination with these pads it's going to sound delicious. So if I just play this pad and then play a solo over the top, you'll hear how really nice this is. Really nice, really nice. I could sit and play that all night. So yeah, the solo part of this track is going to be something sort of similar to that. So let's try and just put something in randomly like I just did there. I don't want to just paste what I just did like by doing the Ableton cheat thing, but I want to just do it fresh. So metronome again. That was quite a long one actually. I'm not even sure if I'm going to keep that. It was quite nice, but I'll have to listen to it kind of in context a little bit to decide. So I'm actually going to play everything except the drums to get me a sort of context. So here we go. See what it sounds like. Turn the metronome off. Yeah, pretty happy with that. I think if I was making the original track and I had done that solo, I would probably have kept it in. So yeah, I'm quite happy with that. Quite a lot. It's quite a lot in there. It's 53 bars long, but this is exactly what we need to do for this kind of music. We have to tell a story and be human about it and give it some human elements instead of being so stuck in the grid. So I suppose I should really give us a listen with the drums as well. Let me just route this to the pads, do a little bit of homework here, and this is solo, and that's solo as well. Okay, it was a little bit loud too. Okay, so we've got our pad sounds in there, our strings, we've got our bass in there, we've got our synth sounds, we've got a lot of percussion in there. And one thing I feel is that some of the drums maybe don't quite fit with the rest of the track. And I know that they're not EQ'd and the levels are all over the place at the moment. But just the grooves maybe not quite right. So what I think I'll do is now, I'll just maybe go back and I'll maybe do some of the other drum sounds again and get them a bit more aligned to the music that we've written. This is the beauty of making music. Sometimes doing the drums first, because you're in the mood for rhythm, you then can build on that and make something happen. And then sometimes you're in the mood for doing melody first, and then you have to try and build drums round it. For this track, I did the drums separately, then I went on to the musical side separately because it was so complex. And this is what happens sometimes when you do these things individually. You end up having to go back and rejigging things a little bit. But this is just something that we can easily change. So I'm going to flip back a little bit now and change some of the drum sounds.
Thanks everybody for watching, commenting and indeed liking. We really do appreciate all the support we get here on our Sonic Academy YouTube channel. So if you found this video super useful, please, we'd love you to hit the subscribe button. We update the YouTube channel every week with new content. And if you want to watch some more relevant content, just click on the videos beside me.